Subscribe and download over 1 million code snippet including this tutorial from codegive.com, link in the description below. In this tutorial, we will explore how to automate tasks on Amazon Web Services, AWS, using AWS Lambda, Python and Boto3, the AWS SDK for Python. AWS Lambda allows you to run code without provisioning or managing servers, making it a powerful tool for automating tasks in the AWS environment. Boto3 is the Python SDK for AWS, providing an easy-to-use interface for interacting with AWS services programmatically. In this tutorial, we will cover the following topics. Let's get started. Before we begin, you'll need to set up AWS IAM, Identity and Access Management, credentials with appropriate permissions to interact with AWS services. Follow these steps. Make sure to keep your access key and secret key secure, as they provide programmatic access to your AWS account. Next, let's create an AWS Lambda function. You now have a basic Lambda function set up, ready to be automated using Python and Boto3. Boto3 is the AWS SDK for Python, which allows you to interact with AWS services from your Python code. To install Boto3, you can use pip, the Python package manager. Open a terminal or command prompt and run the following command. This command will install Boto3 and its dependencies on your system. Now, let's write some Python code to automate tasks on AWS using Boto3. For demonstration purposes, let's create a simple Lambda function that lists all the EC2 instances in your AWS account. In the code above. Title: Automating AWS with Lambda, Python, and Boto3, a step-by-step tutorial. Introduction. Amazon Web Services, AWS, offers a powerful serverless computing service called AWS Lambda, which allows you to run code without provisioning or managing servers. In this tutorial, we'll explore how to automate AWS tasks using Lambda, Python, and the AWS SDK for Python, Boto3. We'll walk through the process of creating a Lambda function, configuring the necessary permissions, and writing Python code using Boto3 to interact with AWS services. Prerequisites. An AWS account. Make sure you have an active AWS account and necessary permissions to create Lambda functions and IAM roles. AWS CLI and Python installed. Ensure that you have the AWS CLI and Python installed on your local machine. Boto3 library. Install the Boto3 library using the following command. Step 1. Set up AWS Lambda function. Open the AWS Management Console and navigate to the Lambda service. Click on the Create Function button. Choose Author from scratch and fill in the required fields. Click on the Create Function button. Step 2. Configure Lambda permissions. In the Lambda functions configuration, navigate to the Permissions tab. Click on the role created earlier to open the IAM role summary page. Attach policies to the role based on the AWS services you want to interact with. For example, attach the Amazon S3 full access policy for S3 access. Step 3. Write Python code using Boto3. Now, let's write a simple Lambda function in Python using Boto3 to interact with an AWS service. In this example, we'll use Amazon S3. Replace your bucket name and your object key with your actual S3 bucket name and object key. Step 4. Deploy and test the Lambda function. Save the Python code to a file, example lambda_function.py. Create a deployment package by zipping the Python file. Upload the deployment package to your Lambda function in the AWS Management Console. Test the Lambda function using the Test button in the Lambda console. Conclusion. Congratulations! You've successfully created an AWS Lambda function, configured permissions, and written Python code using Boto3 to automate AWS tasks. This tutorial provides a foundation for building more complex serverless applications and automations within the AWS ecosystem. ChatGPT. Amazon Web Services, AWS, provides a robust set of cloud computing services, and AWS Lambda is a serverless computing platform that allows you to run code without provisioning or managing servers. In this tutorial, we will explore how to automate AWS tasks using Lambda, Python, and the Boto3 library. Before creating a Lambda function, you need to set up an identity and access management (IAM) role with the necessary permissions. Now, let's create a Lambda function using the AWS Lambda console. Now, let's write a simple Lambda function in Python using Boto3. We'll create a function that lists all the S3 buckets in your AWS account. To automate Lambda deployment, you can use the AWS CLI. Save your Lambda function code in a file named lambda_function.py and run the following commands. Replace your function name, your account ID, and your IAM role with appropriate values. Congratulations! You've successfully automated AWS tasks using Lambda, Python, and Boto3. This tutorial provides a starting point for more advanced automation and integration with various AWS services. ChatGPT.